This story happened in 2014 in the U.S. state of New Mexico. A fun weekend trip became a nightmare for an elementary school teacher, Emily Vambert. In 2014, Emily was 30 years old and worked as a teacher in Garland, Texas. She had 2 daughters, whose father she divorced but maintained friendly relations with. After some time, she started seeing a man named Robert Albert Early. He was 3 years older, and although they had attended the same school, they didn't know each other at the time. Years later, fate had brought them together through mutual friends. Robert made an impression on Emily. The friendly communication between them quickly turned into a romance. They had been dating for 4 months. She even introduced Robert to her parents, Donna and Stephen. Her daughters liked him, and he immediately found a common language with them. When Robert found a job at an oil field in New Mexico, he had to move from Texas. He lived in a hotel in Carlsbad, New Mexico. He and Emily agreed that they would spend the first spring weekend together, leaving her daughters with her parents. Emily went to Carlsbad on Friday, February 28, 2014. The distance between their cities was 500 miles. 8 hours later, she rejoiced at meeting her lover. On Saturday, Emily had a brief phone call with her mother. She was in high spirits and told Donna that she was doing well. On Sunday evening, March 2nd, Emily was supposed to return home. But in the morning of the same day, after leaving the church, her mother, Donna, received a message from Robert asking her to contact him. Robert told Donna that her daughter had gone missing. Emily's boyfriend said they had argued in a bar the night before. After the fight, she left and did not return to the hotel. Her car was still in the parking lot, and her phone was in the room. Donna asked Robert if he had called the police, to which he replied no. She told him to call 911 immediately. Robert informed the 911 operator about Emily's disappearance and said he had spoken with her parents and ex-husband, but they had no idea about her whereabouts. He also mentioned that Emily was drunk when she left the bar. When they arrived at the hotel where the couple was staying, the police saw that Emily's personal belongings were still there, and her car was still parked out front. Her purse with her wallet and documents was in the passenger seat. Why would anyone leave without taking their personal belongings? Robert told the detectives everything that happened the night before Emily disappeared. He went with Emily to a bar located at their hotel. They drank, played pool, and had a good time. But when he started playing with another man, Emily became upset and went to the bar for a drink. While there, she started flirting with a guy in a cowboy hat. That was the reason for their quarrel. Emily said the guy at the bar offered to walk her home. Robert replied she could go with him if she wanted to. After that, Emily left. However, Robert didn't see if she left with the man in the cowboy hat or left alone. When he returned to their hotel room, Emily wasn't there. He thought that she needed some time to calm down and went to bed. When Robert woke up in the morning, Emily still wasn't there. After this, he called her parents, ex-husband, and later the police. 10 hours later, Emily's parents, Stephen and Donna, were already at the Carlsbad police station. They came to file a missing persons report and help find her. Stephen and Donna assured detectives that Emily would never have left her children, her job, and her life of her own free will. Detectives went to the bar to talk to the staff. The staff confirmed that there was an argument between the couple. Robert's story checked out. There were surveillance cameras at the entrance to the bar and in the lobby of the hotel. Recordings from these cameras could help the investigation. Watching the footage, the detectives hoped to gain answers to some of their questions. The most important question was, did Emily leave alone, or did someone accompany her? The recording showed that she left the bar alone at 11:30 p.m. and walked briskly toward her room. Emily didn't look back and didn't speak with anyone. It appeared that she was upset. The CCTV footage also captured the man in the cowboy hat watching Emily leave the bar. Remembering that Robert had mentioned Emily was flirting with the man in the cowboy hat, the detectives assumed that this man could have followed her. He was not the next to leave the bar. However, 4 minutes after Emily left, Robert came out of the bar. The man in the cowboy hat was still standing in the same place. If she had gone to her room, she would have already been there. Soon after, Robert left too. The authorities turned to the media with a request to inform everyone about Emily's disappearance, and her family spread the information through social networks. At the same time, the police started searching and interviewing witnesses. The other hotel guests didn't know anything about Emily's disappearance. They didn't hear or see anything suspicious. That is, except for one man, the man staying next door to Robert Early's room. He stated he heard screams from behind the wall around midnight. With this revelation, the police now believed that Robert had lied when he said that Emily was not in the room when he came from the bar. 58 hours after Emily disappeared, Robert took a polygraph test. Taking the test was his initiative. He wanted the investigators to cross him off the list of suspects. But things didn't go according to Robert's plan. He soon failed the test. When the polygraph examiner informed him about it, he was surprised and said he wanted to retake it. The police didn't allow it. After all, they considered Robert a suspect even before the test, and the fact that he failed the test only strengthened the detective's belief that he knew more than he was letting on. The police interrogated Robert. He changed his initial testimony after learning of the neighbor who heard him and Emily arguing around midnight. Initially, Robert said that Emily was not in their hotel room when he came from the bar. Now that they had caught him lying, he said that Emily was in the room and that he quarreled with her. He and she were both on edge. The amount of alcohol they drank only made the situation worse. Robert was angry that Emily was flirting with another man. At some point, Emily just got up and left. After a while, Robert got into his car and started driving around the area looking for her. Unable to locate Emily, Robert returned to his hotel room. He hoped she would show up when he calmed down. To his surprise, she had not returned. Feeling pressured by the detectives, Robert changed his story again and claimed he saw Emily getting into a big white pickup truck after leaving the hotel. Behind the wheel of this pickup truck was a man with a mustache and wearing a cowboy hat. Perhaps. It was the same man with whom she had flirted at the bar when the pickup truck left the parking lot. Robert allegedly got into his car and followed them. They drove about 15 minutes and ended up at an abandoned house in the desert. When the truck stopped, Robert began to honk. The driver exited the pickup truck with a pipe in his hands. Emily also got out of the truck, and according to Robert, she was almost naked. When she saw her new acquaintance swinging a pipe to hit Robert, she tried to protect him and got between them. As a result, the pipe hit Emily in the head, and she fell to the ground. Robert told the detective that he got scared, quickly jumped into the car, and drove away. He was afraid and didn't know what to do, so he chose not to tell anyone about what had happened. Detectives often listen to nonsensical stories, but what Robert Early told them in this instance topped all of their lists. Still, they decided to investigate and check on his story. After all, Robert said he could show the house near which the events he described unfolded. Robert led the police to an abandoned house. It was 12 miles from the hotel. The detectives noted traces in the dirt road that looked like drag marks. Following the trail behind the barn, they found Emily's lifeless, naked body covered with a metal sheet. Robert was sitting in his car all this time. When they informed him about the discovery of his beloved's body, he showed almost no emotions, as if they had told him something he already knew. Donna and Stephen were devastated. They could not believe it had happened to them again. Donna and Stephen had 2 children and lost both their son and their daughter 2 years apart. Emily's brother had died in a car accident. Of all the information provided by Robert Early, the detectives were able to confirm the location of the abandoned house near which they found the body and that Emily had a head injury. The investigators showed reasonable doubts about the rest of his testimony. However, no one saw any white pickup near the hotel area. Emily left the bar alone. The man in the hat sitting next to her in the bar turned out to be Robert's boss, and the latter had a reliable alibi. Forensic experts concluded that Emily died from multiple head injuries. She had blunt force trauma, bruises on her face, and strangulation marks on her neck. When the police obtained CCTV footage of the hotel reception desk, it became clear that almost all of Robert Early's testimony was a lie. At 11:48 p.m., Robert appeared at the reception desk. He behaved strangely. "The man looked around," called someone, and returned to the bar. After leaving the bar 14 seconds later, he returned to the reception desk and asked for a spare room key. That could mean that Emily wouldn't have let him into their room. The receptionist gave him a key at 11:54 p.m., and he immediately left. This time coincided with when the neighbor heard the couple quarreling, which means Robert got into the room and did something that eventually led to Emily's death. It became increasingly evident that Robert Early was giving false testimony. There was more and more evidence piling up against him. The detectives established that the person Robert called while at the reception desk was Emily, but that she didn't want to talk to him. After receiving the spare key, he went just outside the room and called Emily again. She didn't answer, and the call went to voicemail. Robert did not hang up and entered the room using the spare key. Because of this, his phone recorded a message to Emily's voicemail. It was rather unusual. It sounded like Emily had recorded herself a voicemail. She screamed that she hated Robert and wanted him to leave. With this in mind, the police interrogated Robert again. They explained to him that nobody believed his story anymore. The detective who conducted the interrogation found a way to convince Robert to tell the truth. He finally admitted that he and Emily started quarreling in the bar because of the man in the cowboy hat. During this quarrel, he said that she could go with anyone and anywhere if she wanted. These words offended Emily, so she turned around and returned to the room when Robert returned from the bar. She wouldn't open the door to their room. That's why he had to get a spare key from the receptionist. He got the key, went inside, and they continued their fight. During the quarrel, Emily said that she was leaving and no longer wanted to have anything to do with Robert. According to him, the quarrel turned into a real fight when Emily decided to leave. He tried to stop her, but she bit his hand and pushed him away. Robert hit his head against the wall and got furious. He punched Emily in the face, and when she fell, he kicked her several times. She was able to stand up, but he did not stop and continued to punch her in the head and face. While telling all this, Robert did not show any emotions. It looked like he had no regrets about what he had done. When Emily lost consciousness, he realized that he had gone too far. But instead of calling an ambulance, he decided to hide the traces of his crime. The hotel room where they stayed could be accessed directly from the parking lot, bypassing the reception desk entirely. That is why no one saw Robert put Emily into his car and drive away. He took her to a remote area where she regained consciousness. He pulled her out of the car, took a car hand pump, and started hitting her on the head with it. Emily's body was too close to the road, so he needed to move it further. But the way he did it was no less horrific. He took a rope, tied one end around Emily's neck, and tied the other to the car. This explained the traces of dragging at the crime scene. He took off all of Emily's clothes, struck a few more blows with the pump, and then covered the body with a metal sheet lying nearby. Next, he left and got rid of the rope, Emily's clothes, and the pump. After the confession, Robert showed the police where he had dumped all of these items. On March 5, 2004, police arrested Robert Early and charged him with taking the life of Emily Lambert and tampering with evidence. Since Emily was still alive when he brought her near the abandoned house, they also charged him with kidnapping. After discussing everything with his lawyers, Early changed his testimony again and began to claim that Emily was already dead when he brought her to that remote area. The lawyers wanted to get the charges of kidnapping dropped. If they had been able to convince the court that Emily had died before Robert brought her to the abandoned house, his actions would not have been considered kidnapping. However, forensic experts proved Emily was still alive when Robert hit her on the head with a pump. Thus, his lawyer's plan failed. In May of 2015, the jury found Robert Early guilty on all counts. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He apologized to Emily's family and said he would change places with her if he could. In 2016, he tried to appeal the verdict, but the court denied his appeal.